Really excited to be here, guys. This is going to be some fun. When we I originally chatted to Roz about doing the session, we talked about doing some renovation innovation, but I did want to focus on the mentors and the mentorees, and the aspirants, I think is that what we refer to them as, that are part of the AFA sort of mentoring thing. So what I've done is actually sort of tailored this to cover both if you have a practice, but also yourself. So how you can apply the renovation concepts to yourself and the way you work. So now at the moment, I'm just having a look. I don't think I can see if you have questions. So what I'm going to do is stop, and I'll jump out once in a while to check that. So let's get started on these slides. Basically, this is all happening. This whole concept is happening because everything is changing all the time. And we really need to make sure, as anybody working in this industry, whether you're an advisor, a potential advisor, a paraplanner, a customer support person, no matter who you are, we need to ensure we remain relevant to the public and to the consumer, which isn't quite as easy as you'd think. And it's something that you actually need to learn how to do over time. And that's what we're going to start to cover today. If you're interested in the concept of relevance and how important it has become in industry, then I would actually suggest a book by Michael McQueen. He actually presented at a conference, the AFA conference, a couple of years ago. He's got a book on staying relevant, and I found it really insightful, so I'd encourage you to have a look. But this is the idea of basically being able to keep up, right, on a day-to-day basis. Now, the thing is, in our industry, we just have this constant disruption, right? So it's inescapable. There's nothing we can do about it. Now, the obvious disruption happens with legislation. We've all witnessed the Royal Commission and what's been going on there. It's, full on. It's quite traumatic. It can be tough. But there's loads more types of disruption. There's technology. There's changing consumer demands. There's even changing demographics. If you take a look at where people are living, how they're living, how they're working, all of these things are massive disruptions to the way we do business and the way we might work within a business in financial advice or even run one. And if you ask anybody that's been around for a while, and aspirants, I'd encourage you to chat to your mentors after this about this, then what they'll tell you is that while there has always been disruption, it's speeding up at a rapid rate. So years ago, we didn't have SOAs, we didn't have all these sort of things, but these changes used to happen sort of every few years, right? Whereas now it feels like they're happening every couple of months. So, we've got to find a way to cope with this inevitable and inescapable disruption. And really what we need to do is, over time, we need to move from being reactive, so being reactive in the way we do things, and that's, looking backwards. So this is the current state for most of us. An issue arises and we react. An example would be NRMA service for people with, a car. Something goes wrong. We ring the NRMA, they come and arrive and they fix it. That's a reactive service. Over time, we need to shift first towards a proactive service. Now, what that means is that we're getting data and insight, and we can get faster at how we respond. So our reaction time gets faster. And that might be where NRMA has a monitor on the car, notices that, the wheel fell off or something like that, and therefore send somebody out before you even manage to call, right? So that's a proactive service that involves insight. The third level is like the ninja level, and this is predictive, right? This is about where they realize you're traveling from A to B, and they actually send to your phone warnings about some dangerous potholes on the road so that they avoid the risk or the issue to begin with, right? So that's using foresight, that's thinking ahead, and it requires a deep understanding of the consumer and what they want to do. You can see that they're quite different. Almost our entire industry sits in that reactive space. Something happens and we react to it. But what we're going to talk about today is developing over time the skill to think, first of all, more proactive, but then start to think in a predictive manner. Now, I'm just going to check that I've still got you all because I can't see any of the Zoom. Hold on. There you are. Let's just take a look and put you up on screen so I can see you. Good. And if somebody can just say hello in the Q&A or in the chat, then that'd be, oh, there's the chat. I'll just open that as well. Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you. You just start to wonder whether you're talking to yourself. Fantastic. We'll keep on going then. So we're going to move through those 3 stages, right? And I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we talk through what that means, because you'll get a feel for the shift you're going to have to make to be able to pull this off. So what this means is that we're basically, as human beings and as businesses, we're going to need to be in a perpetual state of renovation. We are not going to have a choice. This is not something that's going to end when the Royal Commission finishes. It's not going to end when FASEA comes out in December. It's never going to end. This is just a state we're going to have to evolve into. Now, you'll see on the bottom right there, where I've got my Twitter handle and a hashtag there. If you guys want to take any screenshots and share them or do any of that, I will make a copy of the slides available on a landing page for you. So if that's of interest, feel free. But of course, I'm more than happy for you guys to take screenshots as you go. That is no problem. So, the lesson here is, renovation is more about, rather than innovation, right, which is where people start, and it really is a mistake. The lesson here is to start with the discovery, to start with understanding a problem, and then find the technology. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Some years ago, so in our business, we do a lot of outbound calls to clients. We call them every 6 months. And so that's a lot of calling, as you can imagine. I happened to be at a technology conference in the States, and there was this app that basically was like a choose your own adventure tool, scripting tool. So it meant that it could draw in the client's details. The team could answer questions as they were making the call, and it would take them on this journey based on the client, what the client answered on the call, right? Really cool. So, you could make sure you covered everything. It collected all the data and it fed it back into our CRM. I thought I was a genius. But what was interesting is when we started using it, it was really good. It did, for somebody new, it definitely took them through the call process. And so it showed them what the script was and took them through what they needed to collect from the client. The problem was the system was slower than the call. So it actually was slowing down the engagement with the clients, because the team had to, go through this rigorous and torturous process. So instead of improving the outcome for the client and for the team member, it made it worse. And the reason was because I got excited about the widget before I'd actually found a problem I needed to solve. Right? We didn't have a problem with the way the team were engaging on the phone. We didn't necessarily have a problem with the way they were asking the questions or the way we're collecting in data, right? I pushed this widget into the practice and it was unnecessary. So, that's where this renovation before innovation concept comes from. It's about finding what you need to fix first and then going and finding the innovation after that, because what we don't need is attention deficit oh shiny, which is really common in our sort of industry, where people get really excited about stuff that they shouldn't necessarily. So what does that mean? Well, basically, it sort of requires us to have quite a new mindset, right? And that's always a bit traumatic, isn't it? It's a new set of skills. It's a new way to look at things. And the first thing that I'd say, the first change in mindset, and this is going to sound really obvious, but it can't be about us. It's got to be about them. What I mean by that is that we've got to make it all about the consumer, all about the client we're interacting with. So even though we may be looking at a process and decide that there's a way it could make it better for us, if it makes it worse for the client, we shouldn't implement that change. Now, that's not necessarily how it's worked historically, and it's certainly not necessarily how it's worked with the product providers. So that customer-centric focus on the way we're renovating is really, really important. And it will mean we will get far more traction and outcome. Now, what this is this predictive thing. So it's well beyond reactive and proactive. Predictive is when you bother to make it about them, because then you understand that the reason the NRMA trucks kept on getting called out to that particular road in, say, Parramatta was because there was 12 potholes one after the other, and they kept on, blowing their tyres. And so, okay, wow, we understand our customers, we understand their pain, and so now we're going to give them that warning before they even head out that way, right? So it's understanding them, not worrying about us and our challenges. That's a really important mindset shift. The second part is actually about then approaching this and having a renovator mindset. And I'm going to give you a couple of rules of thumbs that you can apply to sort of develop this renovator mindset, so you can be doing this constantly and just make it part of your day-to-day. Now, the first one is, you want things to be effective, not necessarily efficient. Now, I know this is a little unexpected, that, most of the sessions you're going to see about innovation are all about efficiency. Now, when you look at these lollipops, they're not an efficient transmission of calories for kids, right? That's not what a doctor would choose to transmit calories to kids. However, they're really a very effective transmission of their desired outcome, which is joy and happiness, right? And silliness. So effectiveness actually has a focus on the consumer, and it has a focus on the result for them, rather than efficiency, which is all about us. Yeah. Now, when you think about it, efficiency has delivered some of the worst customer service experiences of all time. Anybody who is called Telstra's dial-up customer service line, right, and had to go click, 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 press 4, press 7, dial here, put your code in here, like you're there for like 15 minutes before you even get a human being, right? That is not an effective service. If I'm going to get to a human being anyway, just put me through to the dastardly human being, right? That's not effective. It may be efficient at their end because they're categorising us and sorting us and working out where we should sit, but we don't give a rat's ass. That's not enhancing the service to us. This has also happened at product provider land. So I remember for one of the mortgage providers, who shall remain nameless, they would get us to fill in a whole lot of the client's data in a form that was effectively a PDF style online form, and it would get transmitted through to the product provider. Would you believe they then printed that out and it got data entered at their end? Now, they were asking us to do something that was extra at our end, and then it also didn't make them efficient either. So it was neither effective nor efficient. So this focus on effectiveness is really important. Now, my measure when we're looking at new stuff in the business, when we're looking at upgrading our processes or systems, an effective task, process, approach, whatever you're trying to do, effective to us is one of three things. It either brings the consumer or the customer or your client closer to you, right? So it brings you closer, helps you understand them better, and it adds real value to them. So that's one test, that's an effective outcome. The next could be that it frees up time for the team that then gets applied to connecting with the consumer more, right? So even though we're saving time, it's not just saving time for want's sake, for money's sake, it's saving time because it frees you up to engage deeper and better with the consumer. Now, the third one is it's effective because it builds morale, right? So if you've got something that's a little dull or dry and it makes it a bit more fun for the team, to me that's effective, because a team that are using a tool that's fun are more likely to engage with the public in a shinier and glossier fashion, right? So those are the three things I sort of look at in terms of what something, an effectiveness of a process. So it brings a customer closer to you, it adds value to them, it frees up your time, but time that can then be applied to the customer or the consumer, your client, or it builds team morale, it turns a quite manual process into something fun. So that's the first sort of renovator mindset. The second is something that's an important lesson that we all need to learn, but it's a lesson that is, as a renovator, you don't over-engineer the solutions you come up with. If you need a bike, the last thing you should build is a space shuttle, right? Simple trumps complex almost every day of the week. And this is a mistake we made in the early days, and I'm really constantly vigilant for now. We did overcomplicate things. And in fact, that scripting tool I was talking about was an example with that. I made it harder than I needed it to. And just because something is cutting edge, it's an awesome widget, it can it's fun, it's something they're talking about constantly out there in the industry, doesn't mean that's the most appropriate option. So you've got to keep that in mind. Simplicity really is the best way to go. And, the attention deficit oh shiny thing is a real thing. It's something that I've fallen prey to. In fact, what we've recently done is, rather than apply some technology to a task, what we've done is collected some very repetitive admin task, and we're applying it to an overseas virtual resource. It's something that's not necessarily client-centric. It's just something with the business that we need done. And we're deciding to do that rather than, there was a piece of technology that could have potentially done that for us, but A, it was more expensive, would you believe, than the virtual resource. And B, it was proving to be really complicated to get all the technology to connect and for it all to work. It was making it hard, when actually a human touch for this particular task we decided was a better outcome. So I would actually argue you should probably, if you're changing a process, you should probably change it and make it a bit manual to begin with, and then start replacing technology. And, outsourcing those very repetitive tasks can be wonderful, because you can outsource them overnight, and they'll be ready for the team in the morning. So really focus on please don't over-engineer your solutions. When you get excited about this stuff, you will do this. So no matter how many times I tell you now, you're going to do it anyway, but a heads up to try and limit it. The other thing that good renovators do is that they really embrace experimentation. If you are sitting in a practice, you don't own the practice, you're working in the business, even you need to feel empowered to try out some things and fail. And I know that's something that's not easy to develop within yourself, but it's really important in this sort of evolving environment we're working in, when we're really trying to keep up with this disruption, and keep relevant. We need to give ourselves some latitude to do a bit of digging, apply some careful thinking, and then give something a try. Now, you can do that in a really safe way. You can apply a process maybe to a mate or a family member first, or you could apply it internally and get somebody tested in the team. But trying things out and giving them a whirl is the only way that things actually change. Doing things in too inoculated an environment or too sterile, it just doesn't work. You've just got to give things a whack sometimes, right? And see what happens. Sometimes, we've had historically, we've had a problem, we've outlined, and then we've actually tested up to 3 different technology solutions before we found the one that works. That only works when you're happy to give it a go, try it and go, whoa, dude, that wasn't quite what we expected, and you try the next one. Now, the thing is, and any person or even an entire team in a business, if they're fearful of failure, they're never going to innovate. It won't happen. Innovation happens in the creative part of your brain, and that's the part that's separate from fear. That's the part that does bungee jumping when you know better, right? So you really need to feel like you're allowed to try. If you are in a practice and you find that you're a bit nervous about that, I'd encourage you to potentially flag that you'd like to try a couple of things out with your next meeting with your boss, and talk about how you can do that in a safe space that they're really comfortable with and you are. So it's easy for me to say this, that I experiment, because I run the practice, so I can happily go around and break things. I understand it's harder when you're working in a business, but have that conversation. Proactively go and speak to them and say, I want to try out a few things. How do we do this so that you're comfortable and I'm comfortable? Because the last thing you want to do is seriously break something. So please experiment. It's the way to really make change for your business. The other thing that great renovators do, they document everything. Now, I'm sure that's not what you expected. Like, Peter, that's so uncool and it's boring. It's very hard to improve something you've never described in detail. This happens a lot in practices. Any of you that aren't the actual advisor in the business, so you might be in the support team, then you will witness frequently an advisor goes to a conference, they come back with this great idea. They don't actually know that process. Somebody else hands that in the business. They apply a new bit of technology and it doesn't work. And the reason is that they don't know the process well enough. I myself have been caught out with this with the team, and I'm doing my best to make sure they're the ones that are making those decisions. The way to describe what is happening in the business in detail, or maybe even just your role. You could just decide to do this for just your role. It's describe everything you do and how you do it and document it. Now, an example of this is how the mail is handled. in the office. So let's take 2 seconds. Comment if you know exactly to detail in that you could tomorrow turn up and do it, how the mail comes in, how it's handled, and how it gets processed in the practice. So just put a little comment there if you do know that or if you don't, and just let us know as we go along. The truth is, correct, right, Kerry? Most of us don't know. Aside from the person that handles, we wouldn't. Secondly, if we couldn't ask a person, we wouldn't know how to find out, right? That's really common too. Because it's the person that's doing it that knows how, and that sits in their brain. And if they're not there, but Bruce does know how the incoming mail's handled, so I'm impressed, Bruce. Where would you find out if it wasn't a person? They don't know where that is. And most people definitely don't know when that process was last updated or reviewed. Yeah, and so this is a challenge within a business because the IP, the intellectual property of a business, is actually how you do things. So we need to capture that and then renovate and upgrade that. No detail is too fine. No step should be missed. What I mean by this, to give you an example, is if you were to describe how to start a car, then most people would say, well, you put the key in and you turn it. Right? That's how you start a car. That's actually not how you start a car, right? The way you start a car is you walk up to the car, you put your hand under the handle, you lift the handle, you draw the door out to the side, you step in, you turn your bum towards the seat, you put your bum in, then your legs, you close the door, then you adjust the mirror, then you put the key in and turn it, right? You get the drift. The process is actually much more detailed than that. So you need to imagine when you're documenting these that you're describing it to a Martian. Right, somebody who has never done what you're doing, somebody who's never seen it. And what happens when you do that is that you actually enhance the opportunity for you to automate steps there, because you'll start to see things that can be automated or improved upon. Whereas most of us just see it as the mail being handled, where in fact there are multiple steps there. When I workshop this with practices, one of the things that comes up as something that could be far more effective is in fact in the mail handling process, and it's because the scanner is too slow. It's just that nobody ever looks at the detail of the process and realises some poor schmuck has to stand in front of that scanner as it just goes all the way through, right? So understanding and documenting them in detail is really important. Now, the last thing you want to do, though, is create one of those procedures manuals we've all seen that ends up in everybody's drawer, right? So the minute it's written, it's out of date. That's really common. And even if you were doing this for yourself, you just don't want that. You want this to be a living, breathing document. So what I want to share with you is a piece of tech we've come across that we are using in the practice that I think can significantly change this for us all. It's called Guru. You can see the link there, getguru.com. Basically, if you've ever used Apple, gone online and asked a question about an Apple or a Mac product, or gone onto any customer service and you just put in the question and that comes up with the most likely answers, that's the way Guru works. So it has a whole lot of content you start putting in there, and then the team ask how to do something, and it gives them the most likely answers. If they can't find an answer, what it does is says, oh, there's no answer. I'm going to ask a guru in your office how to do that. And so a message gets sent to the guru, who might be one member of the team. They type, instead of you asking via email and getting an answer via email or asking in person, you ask via guru, you type the answer of how to do that, and then it's forever in the system, right? So you are constantly updating, involving your IP, and it's getting captured in Guru. And you won't believe how many things you all just answer willy-nilly. Oh, that's how you do it. And you probably answer the same thing 30 times, right? Whereas this sits in that system and it is captured forever. Now, it's not free. It's about $5 to $10 per user per month. Honestly, it's not that expensive, I don't think. And in terms of, for any of the mentors on the line who might have practices, if we want to get to the point where our practice are worth more than just a multiple, this is the IP that you can then sell. right? So sitting in there will literally be something somebody could plug in, having bought your practice, and it's how you do everything. It takes some time. I'm probably going to run a session down the track on how to actually build this out, because there is an art. We messed it up, so why don't I share how we did that? But Guru is one of the ways. If it's not quite the thing you're looking for, then it's intranet, your own intranet. It's that sort of thing. It's just that I think Guru does this in a really intuitive way. And really powerful. So those are sort of the mindset things for the renovator. We focus on effective, not efficient. Simple beats complex. Yeah. So don't get too crazy about the complexity. Experiment the living hell out of things. Give it a go. Give it a try, and document everything you can, because the more you document it, the more you can upgrade and improve it. Then, so let's say, okay, we've got our renovator mindset hat on. Where do we start? Well, I think, in fact, what we probably need to do is renovate ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about, Botox or any sort of magical physical stuff there. I'm not a fan of necessarily doing that, but what I'm talking about here is changing or potentially upgrading or updating our own behaviours, the way we operate on a day-to-day basis. And the tips I'm going to give you here are just things that appeal to me. They're not necessarily the only way, but I think if we can start changing the way we behave, it actually feeds into that renovation mindset, and it feeds into our ability to really adjust to change. So these are sort of more day-to-day behaviours that we can change. And then I'm going to focus on some ways that we can help you work on the practice as well. So the first concept is something I've called anyone, anytime. Now, what I mean by that is it's an approach to the way we record any work we do for or with clients and our progress. At its essence, it's saying that when you make a file note, when you complete a task, when you set a task, when you undertake anything, when you undertake research, you do it in such a way that anybody else in the team could pick it up and proceed with it. Now, they might not be able to necessarily do it as well as you, but you are making notes, you are summarising what you're doing so clearly and so well that somebody else in the team could pick it up. Now, what this means is you use fuller sentences, you list what you might have done, right, in a file note in your system. Maybe you use Xplan or one of those other systems. You also use actual quotes from a client. Those are actually far more useful to somebody who's picked something up cold, right? When there's actually a quote and then they're speaking to the client, you may have been off sick or you're on holidays. They can see actually what the client said in their words. They can repeat them back to them, right? So it's the ability for anyone, anytime, to be able to pick this up. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean by this. So let's imagine part of your role is to do research for reviews. Or even research on a product for a new client. Let's say that, right? So you've had a new client come in and you've been tasked with doing some research on that new product. What that would mean if you were really going hard with this is that you would have a spreadsheet specifically set up as a template that was research on new product. So that when you call the product provider and ask them questions, you are summarising the outcomes of that in that spreadsheet. Yeah. Then you're also summarising any analysis or anything you're doing on that product in that spreadsheet. You would note in the CRM that you made a call to the product provider, who you spoke to and what they said. If all of what they said was captured in the spreadsheet, you'd simply say that. Called Bob at XYZ product provider and collated all of the detail he gave me in the spreadsheet, saved in the client's file, right? So you've literally said exactly what you've done. And then you save that spreadsheet in the client's file, right? Now, for some of you, that's going to be a no-brainer. You're all going to think that's obvious. And for some, it's like, wow, Peter, that's overkill, right? Why are you doing that much? Well, if somebody else needs to take over that for you or even help you, then the more detailed and more structured you can be in the way you're doing tasks, the easier that is. This isn't just about compliance, although can I say most compliance managers are going to love the living daylights out of you if you do this, right? The more evidence we provide of the research we do or the tasks we undertake for clients, the better compliance love you. And evidence is great. But what it's also doing is providing breadcrumbs for someone to follow 6 months down the track when something comes up about that file and you just happen to be on a cruise in Greece for a month and somebody needs to pick this up, right? So the more you can give the structure, then the more somebody can do that. I think, many of us, and advisors certainly fall into this category, make it almost impossible for somebody to help us on a day-to-day basis because it all happens in our head. We do maybe a summary note or the SOA is our summary, right? But what that means is if you're not actually noting the detail of the work you do, it's very hard for somebody to then step in and help, right? Because it takes you longer to download for them what they need to do than the actual task would take. This is not about replacing you. That's not what I mean. What it means is actually being so thorough, somebody can jump in and help. Yeah, they can just step in and can start working straight away. This also, if you're in a practice, if you have this approach, it's also going to make it a lot easier to use a virtual resource in the future to potentially help you out. So the more thorough you are in the way you do your work on a day-to-day basis, the better. The more templates that you fill in that people know that have a certain name and that's what you use in the file note. Yeah, so all that sort of stuff can make a massive, massive difference. It takes some time to get there. If any of you are struggling with trying to change a process or even what you do, please reach out. I'm happy to chat, or if you've even got a question here of how that might work, do that as we go. But this can make a massive difference. Now, the next thing we need to change is we need to understand that email is dangerous, all right? This stuff is evil. Email is possibly the worst invention ever. Somehow we've allowed email to run our days, right? We've allowed it to define what we do on a day-to-day basis. Let's be clear, email is not your boss, right? It's not. Say no, right? Now, if you're questioning whether I'm right, one of the symptoms of this is that the first thing you do when you get into the office is you open your email and then you start actioning. That's not very self-determined in my view, right? You are not directing how you're spending your day. You're not necessarily prioritizing, right? So what that means is your day is driven by when somebody else thinks something important because they've emailed you, right? So they are telling you when they need to do things, certainly not letting you prioritizing it. And what it means is you are stuck in reactive mode. Remember that early mode we talked about? You are stuck there. There is no way you're going to get to proactive, let alone predictive, if you allow this external force, this email, this evil, dangerous email to run your life. The second symptom that you're potentially caught up in the evil email monster is if you participate in constant CCing on emails in your business, right? That stuff is horrendous. It's not effective, right? Let me explain why. So you are emailing somebody, maybe even somebody in the team or somebody externally, and you have a message to them. Great. When you CC 5 people, what happens is it hits their inbox, and to work out whether that information is relevant to them, they have to read it. So instead of one person taking 5 minutes of their time to read an email, 6 people do. So we've then multiplied the time spent on that particular task by 5 or 6, all right, instead of somebody determining themselves whether they need to read it. So I would argue that we should almost never, well, very little use CC on email. It really is. I understand why. It's about keeping people updated, isn't it? That's what it is. I want to keep the team updated on this. It is a bad way to update people. Let me give you some tips on how you can change then your behaviour to sort of fix this hold that email has on us. I would set some certain times of the day when you look at emails and not first thing, right? You will have prioritised your day at the end of the previous day. You come in, you start, and then maybe 10 or 10:30, then you look at your emails. Now this, even me now, I struggle to do this, but it is something worth trying to achieve. Setting maybe twice a day where you check email and you close it for the rest of the time. All right? Don't let it run what you're trying to do. When you do go through your emails, then either action it because it's just going to take a couple of minutes, which some of them do, or then task and prioritise that in another place, right? So just prioritise as something you've got to get to, but then move on, right? Either you can do it now or it goes in a list, yeah? And instead of CCing an email, if you want to keep a team updated internally, which I understand completely, then, there's one or two things there. Either you're trying to keep your boss updated, which I understand. Well, if that's the case, then potentially set up a report that's something that will keep them updated on what you're doing, and set a meeting once a week with them where you run through that instead of CCing them. I guarantee you they're going to thank you if you do this, right? This is about valuing people's time, right? Secondly, if you've got teams that are working on a project, and we've all been part of that, right? 6 members on the team, and you're CCing them to keep them updated. Instead of that, then a project document or a project system that means when I want to see where things are at, I go in and look. I don't go through the 47 CC'd emails that all the different team members are sending each other, right? Now, that is a shift, and I recognise it's not necessarily going to come naturally, but if you can manage to pull this off, then if you want to go really ninja on this, you turn your office into a no internal email office. You are not allowed to send emails to each other. There are probably some really horrified people out there right at this moment. But what you can do is replace email with an internal chat tool where you can get quick answers on things. Google Chat, Slack is another app you can use. And let me just show you where you can find Slack. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a little chat function. Think of it a bit like Messenger for business. Facebook Messenger for business, and it'll let you just quickly chat to each other if you need to. That can often get rid of a whole lot of emails. And then potentially for projects, you can have either a simple document that is where everybody updates things, or I'll show you later another way when you get bigger or a part of bigger teams that you can use different systems. So move on from email. Take back charge of your life and your work, and don't let email rule you. Now, let me just check. We don't have any. I'll just check any more questions. No, we're good. No questions at this point. Lovely. I'm going to keep on going then. Fantastic. So next step in terms of renovating ourselves is actually, learning how to manage yourself in a bigger sense. So we just talked about email as one of the things that takes charge of our day, but we can actually apply some rules to our whole day and the way we manage our time generally. What this often means is we've got to find some sort of tool to help us plan our day, right? So it can be a to-do list, as something as simple as that. But I guess what I wanted to share with you is a tool I've come across. It is free, and I think even if you just used it yourself to help you plan your day better, I think it could be great. Now, I'm going to try and move my screen to show something else on the screen. So this could be, very exciting and could destroy everything. But fingers crossed, everybody, that this is going to work. Right. So hopefully, if I click share now, can you see Trello, a green screen now? I'm hoping that you guys can see that. Yep, Roz is nodding. Can she? Yep, very good. Awesome. All right, so Trello, you can find that at trello.com. Oh, yes, thank you, Trish. It's free. And what you do is you're setting up a board. I've set up this dummy board called Plan for Awesomeness here, which you could use on a day-to-day basis. On the left, you can see things that we want to do today. Then we have a column for things we want to do tomorrow, for the rest of the week, a list basically of stuff that, is there that eventually we need to get to. And then the right one is things as they come in, right? We haven't allocated them anywhere, but they just, they're coming in. Now, basically what this means is at the end of each day, you take a look at what you've got here. You take a look at the things that have built up in inbox, right? And what we do is that little action item that came up today, I'm going to drag them over. I'm going to drag them over here that I want to get done. All good. Yep. This one I've been waiting off. I'm just going to drag it over here, right? Trello is awesome for that. Now, some of you all have seen this before and have used it lots, but I come across a lot of people that don't have this way of managing their day. The ninja level of this is twofold. One, you use little letters at the front that give you a sense of what that is. You can see here I've done this. W is webinar, renovation, then innovation webinar. E is an email, follow up, that super account on the registration for whatever. I've got as an idea, something I need to create or think about. M is a meeting. Yeah, so that, I've got to meet with my boss for a work in progress update tomorrow. And C might be a call I've got to make, right? So what this means is if you use something like Trello, then we can get ninja about the way we start to manage our time. We could have a certain type of email that comes into your Gmail. It could be from a type of client, a particular product provider, or even from your boss, right? And that type of email, using a thing called Zapier, which I'll show you the link for in a minute, you could set up a Zap that basically took that email and automatically set up another card here. It would do it automatically without you even seeing it. New email from the boss, right? Ooh, can't spell. So it would automatically put that in your inbox in Trello. And so then each, you might check Trello first thing in the morning, midday, and then at the end of the day, you go, oh, I can see I've got a new one I need to action. I'm going to drag that. That's really important, actually. I'm going to drag that to today. I want to get that done in today's tasks. You can also apply labels to tasks here. So we could set up one here that is, let's call it, super duper urgent. Right? And every task that has that, as you can see, has the little red thing, and if you click on it, it says super duper urgent. So this can be a way that you can proactively manage your time without looking at your email, right? That email thing happened automatically. It would have automatically zapped. So this is a really clever way to better manage what you're doing and not to forget things. My fear is that there'll be something that comes up that I know I don't need to do now. I know I don't need to do it tomorrow, but I won't remember to do it. That's what waiting's for. Oh, that's right, I've got to do this. And we put it in the waiting file. And then at the end of each day, you sit down and you plan your next day and you add things to that list. I hope that was helpful. There's lots of other apps than Trello that do this. You can find loads of them, and I'll show you a link later on where you can find alternatives, but it really is a super powerful way to be proactive about your day. So let's now go back to our pretty slides over here, share screen, and I'll give you the link there for Zapier. Zapier is, it's just awesome. So this can trigger all sorts of things. You could have an email, a certain type of email that comes in that's always got an attachment, and you could set up a Zap in Zapier that automatically puts the attachment in Dropbox and then flicks you a notification in Slack and says, oh, you've got a new one of these attachments. All of that can happen without you touching it. Yeah. So this is a way to manage your time. You could have a form set up in something like Typeform or SurveyMonkey or one of those things, and you could have a Zap that says, okay, every time there's a new type form that gets set up of this type, I want it to put all of those entries into a Google Sheet automatically of this type, and then I want to get a notification in Slack. Yeah. But this is all about, there's another one where you could have, there's a spread, say you're working for some advisors, they're using a Google Sheet, and there's a certain row, if they change that row, you're going to end up having to do some work. You could set up a Zap that said if the data is updated in this sheet, in that Google Sheet, or that row in that Google Sheet, flick me a notification in Slack so you're about to get some more work that you're going to have to do, right? So this is all down to your own creativity, but it only works if you've bothered to understand the minutiae of how you're going about your work. Right? You're only going to get that as those things I've described, they're small things, right? But that's where the cleverness about automation can happen. So that's where we really get some juice. So I'd encourage you to go and look at Zapier. You will be surprised how many things you can connect. They're called Zaps, and it's connecting two systems, one and the other. Google Sheets and Slack, or Gmail and something else, or a website and SMS. There's all sorts of things you can use it for. Zapier isn't free, but once again, it's also very, very cheap. The next thing we've got to do, that I'd suggest you do as a way to sort of renovate the way we behave before we then renovate a practice, is to start learning how to time chunk. There's sort of two layers to this. The first layer is breaking up your day or even your week and month into doing chunks of the one thing. If you are somebody that's got to write social media posts, then allocating 3 hours once a month to do a whole lot of them and then schedule it is far more effective than drip feeding them over time. Yeah. So that's the first level of time chunking. What this means is you're not reacting to constant interruption. You're dedicating a set of time to a particular task. Now, the mistake I made when I first did this was time chunking just in a week. Like I just looked at the week as the only time frame. So I was trying to jam everything into a week. It doesn't make sense. I'd look at it over a month. Yeah. So there'll be certain things you need to do every week, but lots of things you could look at on a month basis. That's the first layer of time chunking. The next layer though is the ninja level, where you start learning how to batch tasks. So what I mean by that is, let's imagine you're responsible for doing the analysis for reviews for clients. If you follow the steps of the review process, then some way in, you might need to go to Morningstar and withdraw the reports on the updated funds for that client, right? So it's the 8 funds that are invested in, you're going to get those updated Morningstar reports. When you time chunk and batch well, instead of doing that one at a time for each client, once a month, you will get a list of all the clients and hence all the funds you need, and you'll get all of those reports in one hit and put them all in their different folders, right? So time chunking is both allocating time to a specific task, but also thinking about what you do that you could do in batches, right? And it really is far more effective. It saves a lot of time because you're not going in and out of, for example, systems like I say a Morningstar or an Xplan or a Coin or any of those systems you use. You get a rhythm for that activity when you do them in a batch. If you've ever had to fold mail, you'll learn this, right? You can really get very effective and get in a good rhythm when you do a lot of it in a hit. You start to notice things that can be automated when you do it this way. So if you're doing lots of them in a row, you're going to pick up on things you can get automated or even get help from in the office. Batching will really help you make best friends with the receptionist or a support staff member who can help you out, right, once you start doing that and batching things. And you'll also notice things that you're potentially doing unnecessarily. When you repeat them, you start going, hold on, why am I doing that? I've done that 12 times and I don't need to, right? You'll start to pick up on that. And you'll start to pick up on things that you were doing multiple times for multiple clients when you could just do them once. So batching manages to do that for us. So learn about time chunking, start to think about how you can do that, and allocate time in your schedule for creativity and coming up with ideas about renovation and innovation. You've actually got to apply time to this. It's not something that's just going to happen to you. You need to happen to it. So if then we've covered renovating ourselves, and I'm conscious of time, we're making good progress. I won't hold you up too long. Then it's about, well, what should I renovate, right? If I've done my own behaviours, what in the practice or what in my role or what should I target first? Now, when I do these renovation before renovation sessions, we spend a lot of time on this, and I really am conscious of time here, so I'm going to give you the high level stuff. In terms of where we start, well, the first place I'd start is actually this young man. This is Seth Godin. He is particularly famous on TED. You may have already seen this video. If you haven't, it is the best description of why we need to renovate you will ever witness. It's about 20 minutes. It's called This Is Broken. You can get it on the TED website or on YouTube. And basically, it's about understanding that just because we've always done something some way doesn't mean we should in the future. And I personally believe in financial advice, we really need to start thinking this way. What are we doing that is fundamentally broken from the public's perspective? Right? Seth in the video gives us lots of examples, and you will, for example, I had one recently where I think I was ringing, might have been Qantas or somewhere like that, and I rang. They got me to put the number in, on the code while you ring in. I get to a person and they go, "And what's your account number?" Like, are you serious? I just entered it. You just gave me a 47-step process to do it, and now you're asking me again, right? So understanding and using that different perspective from the client's experience can make a massive difference. So the first thing you should do if you want to start looking in the practice, watch this video and start to think about where things are broken in the way we do things, yeah? What is just doesn't seem to work from either the client's perspective or your perspective in the practice? What are we making harder than we need to? And even if it's not broken, does it need updating? Is it just not quite up to scratch? And one of the ways you can do this is to actually get brainstorming. So basically, there's a whole science around the way to brainstorm that we probably don't have time for. But basically, it's about coming up with projects as a team or a few of you. It doesn't need to be a whole business. You could even do a few of you that are maybe in support roles. Maybe it's all the paraplanners and admin get together, or all the advisors get together. It's a couple of you, and you brainstorm what might be broken in the practice. There's 2 techniques I've come across that can work. One is called an affinity workshop. That's something that I'm going to go into more detail in a workshop I'm running in Brisbane. The second one is called a Sinners or Saints workshop. NetWealth actually have a tool. You can log on to NetWealth and request it. That's called the Innovation Toolkit, and it describes a Sinner or Saints workshop. Basically, this is just it's any technique to get all the ideas out and up on the wall, and you can start to prioritize them. The sort of areas you're looking to consider are the environment at work. Is there things about it that could be improved? What about the client experience is broken or what isn't working? What about the client offers need updating, or what is coming? What disruption is coming that is going to knock out the way that you currently provide offers to the client? What processes are broken or stalled? So understanding where there's a bottleneck in the process, where everything gets stuck. And every time you get together in a team meeting, there's all of these clients sitting at a certain point in the process. What's broken with some of the systems you use? What's even broken with the equipment you use? It might be you just need a faster scanner, right? Identify those areas you need to focus on, and then start prioritizing a handful of projects, maybe 2 or 3 for the next quarter. And start knocking those off. Now, what happens when you start doing this, and we found this in the practice, is you actually start to get in a little bit of a mess. What happens is you start with all these new renovation projects, it gets very exciting, and your team get very enthusiastic, and there's absolute confusion, chaos and mess. Projects will get started with a flurry but never get finished, or they get finished but they never get documented, or they get documented but they never get systematically communicated. And we still struggle with this, to be honest, in the practice. It's not unusual. It's because we've got to learn a new skill. We've got to learn project management. Right, and it is a different skill. So therefore, if you are going to be doing more of this, and as you do start putting this in place and start brainstorming projects you need to attack in the business, you're probably going to need a great project management system. This is about coordinating all the project management efforts that in the practice and bringing the team together. We happen to use Rike. That's what we researched and found and chose as our project management tools. There's loads of alternatives that you can look at. But the 3 key elements, if you're going to look down this path, is it's got to allocate tasks and subtasks for a project to individuals, to multiple team members, to a due date, to a range of dates. It's got to be able to do all of those things, right? So it's got to be quite flexible. And potentially, ideally, it'll let people chat within the app. So rather than an email about a project again, right, we can do a comment on a task and go, hey, Ros, can you please update me on, right? So that's the way that, a good project management task will work, system will work. And it has a way of collecting ideas, because that's the other thing we need for project management is somebody goes, it'd be really good if you need a place to put those ideas, and your project management system can do that. Now, the other thing you don't want is a linear one. What I mean by that, I don't know if any of you have ever used Evernote, but in Evernote, you can apply multiple tags to a note. So it can almost sit in multiple folders if you're managing it that way. Most project management systems only let a task sit within one folder. You want it to be able to sit in multiple, right? You want it to not be linear. You want it to be able to be applied to multiple different folders. So tagging, or the equivalent, something like tagging, and use that expression if you're chatting to them about it, is something that we've found has completely changed the way we do things. So make sure you look for that. So then, I've sort of talked your ear off about renovation. I'm going to give you a little bit of innovation on the end, just to make sure you get the buzz of a bit of tech. And basically what I'm going to cover off is the concept of a tech ecosystem. This is a different way of looking at technology. I think a lot of us look at technology as individual things we use. When what we need to look at it is a bigger picture, something that fits together as an ecosystem. Now, something that isn't so much of an ecosystem would be like this. Now, this is actually a photo in my brother-in-law's office of a whole lot of systems that he's kept with the view that one day they'll be useful. They will never, ever be useful again. There is even some Kodak, if you look down the bottom there's even some Kodak film, never to be used again. Now, to be frank, if I was to do a visual representation of some practices, systems, ecosystem, this is sort of what it'll look like, right? I mean, it out of date or no longer relevant, it's expired, it hasn't been updated from the product provider, it's no longer able to perform the function it was designed for, or we don't even need that function anymore, but for some reason we've still got the system, right? This sort of represents that. If you want to change that and have a true tech ecosystem, then two key things. Look for systems that have an open API. That means they're happy to transmit data with other systems. That also means they'll probably be on the list for Zapier, right? All the things that are on Zapier are happy to talk to each other. Now, in advice systems, we don't actually have many of those in our industry anymore, but they are getting there. And if we all push and demand it, we'll end up having more of them that will be on open API. And I know of one that's doing their very best to get on Zapier as we speak. So it is possible if we push. So open API. And the second thing you want, if you want a tech ecosystem, is you need to pick one thing that is the single source of truth for clients. One system that sits in the middle, one ring to rule them all. No. One system that sits in the middle, and that's where all of the interactions are recorded. So if you use an SMS system to message a client to remind it, the fact that you sent the SMS gets noted in your single source of truth. Now, for lots of you, that might be an X-Plan or a similar. For us, it's a CRM, but you have this view where everything that happens sits in that, a record of it at least sits there, and then you use other systems. The reason you do this is so that you can plug and play. And what I mean is, if the SMS system isn't up to scratch anymore, you can replace it with something else. You're not losing data, you're not losing anything. You can just plug one out and plug another one in. So if you're going to go with the tech ecosystem, those are the two key things. If I'm giving you my little tips, there's a lot more, of course, but I wanted to give you the highlights. What I want to finish off with, and then we can go to questions, is some ninja tricks for finding tech. You have to keep these on the quiet because we don't want too many people to get on top of these tips. But my secret tricks are, there's two places I go when I'm looking for new technology or apps or widgets. The first one is Slack, slack.com/apps. Now, what they've got there is a list of all of the apps that integrate with Slack. Now, why would I go there? Well, Slack is one of the top systems used by all the major Silicon Valley companies and basically the biggest businesses in the world. A lot of them use Slack as a way to talk to within their businesses instead of email. And so any app that syncs with that is probably, as in the top half of all of the list of systems of that type. So for the project for Reich, I went to that location to find apps. For all sorts of other tools, we've done that. So they are categorized by type, and there's just massive lists of them. So that's one place you can go to look for an app. The second place is Zapier.com/app. So both of those tools have these massive lists of apps that will then form a function. What you then do is you go, oh, but I've found two potentials, Peter, what do I do? You literally Google X versus Y. So, as an example, you Google Slack versus Google Chat, and you will find there are geeks worldwide who have done the hard work for you and compared those two systems in detail. You don't need to do that. Let them do it. You just Google it, okay? So I would encourage you to do that. I'd also, anytime you're looking at systems, run it past your dealer group, please, people, so you don't go to a lot of effort and then it's not able to be used. Consider data security and if there's any issues there. But slack.com/apps, zapier.com/app. They're my two places that I go to for new widgets and new gadgets. And I've done that very quickly, conscious of us being late. I really would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. There's my link there. We will be running sessions that go deeper into this sort of stuff within the business. So I'm going to be traveling around the country doing that. So if you connect with on LinkedIn, you'll hear about those. We have one in Brisbane coming up on the 1st of August. So I'd encourage you all to start renovating and innovating, and happy to sit here and answer any questions about the behaviour stuff, about apps you've seen, what do I think, any of that sort of stuff. And happy to take any questions. Oh, Trish, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really do hope it was helpful. Hit me with them, folks.
So, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes. Cool. Yes, I can.
That's awesome.
That's a miracle.
I do have a major project coming up shortly. So I was just looking at that Reich thing. Is that sort of really good from a technology perspective as well to run a project?
How do you mean?
So, there's going to be numerous tasks around conversions and data and cleanup of database, and then jobs for everybody within, sort of, I guess, the whole office to have components to do it. So I know.
Yeah. So what it lets you do is it lets you have It's for something layered. It's really powerful. So you could actually use it for one big project, for example, and it has folders, and then under each folder it has individual projects. Under each project you can have a sub-project, then you can have tasks, you can even have subtasks, right? So you can really layer things. You can have some of that stuff that's the, I'm going to forget what it's called, but where basically this task is connected to the completion of the other one. And so if until it gets done, then it bumps that, that sort of stuff. It handles resourcing. So if you're looking at who can do what, it'll say, oh no, Roz has got 427 tasks tomorrow. That's not going to work, right? So it lets you do that. But honestly, the most powerful thing, if you're running a complicated project like that, this ability to chat under a task. So somebody's got to do something and they've got to ask you a question. What happens is you actually, when you use Facebook, you do the @ if you were going to tag me in something @ Peter, that's what you do in Rike. You literally @ Roz and then you say something underneath that task. Right. It'll pop up on your system, on your phone, on whatever you've got Rike on, and you can quickly answer it. For the team, what it's meant is when I'm now presenting a lot, when I'm sitting in the crowd waiting to present, something will quickly come up from, say, Hayley, and she'll go, oh, can you take a quick look at this? I can quickly answer rather than it waiting and then it being an email and it's one of 427 emails. Yes, so it really allows people to interact. And in fact, you can see the history of an interaction on a particular task. So it's certainly one to consider. It's not the only one, but and I'm happy to do a separate session potentially on something like that, and I can show you how we've divided ours up. But it's really powerful if you use it well.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Well, I'm not sure if there's any more questions out there.
Doesn't look like it.
No. So, Peter, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been certainly amazing session. I myself have taken a lot from this. So we'll quickly edit to this and put it up on the Mentors and Aspirants page for everybody. And once again, Peter, as usual, superstar, ninja warrior. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for having me. See you guys.
See ya. Thanks, Peter.